to watch. But with that said, this is not a conference talk about breakdancing because no one will accept that talk as many times as I try to submit it. So instead, we're going to talk about progressive web apps. Our talk is actually called How to Make Your Progressive Web App and Why You Might Want. That's entirely too long. That is a long, long title. But anyway, hi, my name is Lemon, and I have been making websites for 20-ish years. I do it for a job. I do it for fun. I do make a lot of websites. I enjoy making websites. It's sort of part of who I am is that I think that making websites is really, really fun and rewarding and touches a lot of people. And I think that that's neat. And when I say websites, I consider myself a web developer. I don't necessarily consider myself an app developer. When I say websites, I don't mean apps. And that's a little bit confusing because those words can be used interchangeably, and fairly so. Somebody can launch a web app. A web app is definitely a thing that exists, or you can have like a corporate application that exists on the web that is both an app and a website. I understand that, but when I'm saying websites, I'm saying specifically three things. I'm saying HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because when you're doing web development, no matter what you're doing, no matter what kind of technology, your PHP, your .NET, your Ruby, your React, blah, 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 no matter what, you're always going to be coming down to these three immutable facts. These are the three languages that will be on your website, whether you wrote them or not. And I think those three languages are personally very interesting to me. So that's what I do. I make websites. I tend to not make apps. So what'll happen sometimes, the client will come to me and they'll say, well, I want you to build me a website. And I go, that's awesome. Yeah, let's totally do that. Let's build a website. Yes, you'll pay me. It'll be great. Fantastic. But then sometimes the client will come to me and they'll say something else. They'll say to me, I want you to build me a mobile app. And I'll say, well, okay, but based on what you're trying to do, a mobile app might actually not be the best solution. So like, I don't know, what about a website instead? And that conversation can sometimes go in different places and sometimes go down different avenues. And that's totally fine. But then sometimes the client will say something slightly different. They'll say to me, hey, I want you to build me a mobile app and I'll pay you a lot of money to do it. And I go, okay, yeah, let's build a mobile app. Sounds cool. Love building mobile apps, Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And so what I'll do, because I consider myself a website developer, not an app developer, is I'll do one of two things. I'll either do Cordova or I'll do PhoneGap, and I'll kind of wrap those things up. Now, obviously, there's different versions of the same sort of process. So you get your Xamarin, you got your React Native, you got your Ionic, bunch of stuff. But these are the two technologies that I've personally used in the past. And that process always looks pretty much the same. What I'll do is I'll build my web app in Cordova or PhoneGap, and I'll just basically start by building an HTML website, get the thing feature complete, kind of thing that I would have FTP'd or, Git pushed up to the world. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that in a vendor-specific web view. There's going to be an Android version, there's going to be a iOS version, and there will not be a BlackBerry or a Windows Phone version because it is 2021, still 2021 now. But I'm going to wrap that in a vendor-specific web view, and then I'm going to add in plugins, sometimes a bunch of plugins, depending on what they're looking for. Then I'm going to release that web app to the store. And therein lies the problem. And when I say problem, I actually mean quite a few problems. Because I'm going to have a problem with app signing. Once I'm done with my actual HTML, CSS, and JavaScript coding, I'm going to need to sign that app. And that's going to look different for both of those different platforms. If I've got an Android app, I need to have the JDK environment set up. That's just not usually part of my workflow, so that's an entirely new thing. If I've got an iOS app, then it needs to touch a Mac. One of the fun things about iOS app developments is that no matter what your build process is, no matter what your production process is, your app needs to touch a Mac before getting out. That's just one of the hard requirements that they have. Those plugins I was talking about, they're all going to have versions. They're all going to have different versions, and those versions are going to be dependent on different versions, which means incompatible dependencies. It's definitely something that I've run into. There's going to be style and content rules. I have, a specific aesthetic that I personally like, and when I build stuff, I do it in that aesthetic. But of course, if I'm doing something that is an Android or an iOS app, those styles and those styles that I might have are inconsistent with what they want. So they might have rules that are different from my design ideas. And those rules are going to change over time. There was the thing where iOS really liked the really skinny line icons. They no longer love that as much. There will be the possibility of rejection based on all of those things. I can get rejected, and no matter what, there's definitely going to be waiting. So with that, I'm actually going to tell you a true story. This is a true story of something that happened to me, and something that I've tried to learn from and build upon. And so that means that this true story did not go super duper great. So what happened was I built a mobile app, same general idea that, by the way, I'm wearing my speaker badge last year, just to feel a little bit more conferencey. Anyway, I built a mobile app for a client because they wanted a mobile app, and that was fine. It took more work than I wanted it to, but we got it out there, and it felt pretty good. And I was happy. And then 6 months later, they wanted a small change. Now, the confines of the small change aren't really important. The only thing that you need to know is that it's basically, it's like 20 minutes worth of code, but then I had to push it through all these systems. So I did the small change. I pushed this code through, and then I went, okay, now we just have to wait for it to get approved, and then we're all good. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited for like a week. And then finally, I got an email from Google Play Support. And Google Play Support said, we have rejected the latest build from your Google Play Store because it violates our policy on embedded YouTube videos. Please see this web page that has a whole lot of text, which sort of describes what I'm talking about, but kind of not. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I consider myself a polite person. I like to be polite. I think that, when dealing with familiar or unfamiliar people, specifically unfamiliar people, it's best to start out polite. That's just the way that's going to work best for anybody. So I did that. I said, okay, it was the Google Play Support. Thank you so much for your note. Really, really helpful and elucidating. Thank you. I am confused on the cause, though, as my app actually doesn't have any embedded YouTube videos. Can you please explain? Google Play Store, they respond a lot faster this time. I said, sure, yeah. What I mean to say is the embedded YouTube videos in your app violate our policy on embedded YouTube videos. And I said, okay, yeah, cool, except the app doesn't have any YouTube videos of any sort. So, advise? And they said, no problem. I got you, man. Google Play Support said to me, we do not offer support. I'm going to put that out one more time. Google Play Support said to me, we do not offer support. That's what they said to me, and that was their opening move. This was specifically my problem, but it points to a greater concern, which is that they couldn't actually offer human support at the level that they're operating at. The iOS App Store has about 2 million apps installed. The Play Store is about double that with about 4 million. Now, there is some amount of human moderation, and for those larger things, the recent case with Parler getting pulled, that's a situation of human moderation. But that's only a small fraction of what's going on. In a large extent, they actually have robotic automation. They have to. At that size number, they have to. And also, they kind of have to have capricious rules. There was a situation where one of the reasons why Tumblr got sold off was because Apple sort of flagged this thing as being pornography. Now, is that fair? I don't know exactly, but the thing is that they are allowed to set all of these rules because they have themselves a walled garden. The internet is not a walled garden. The internet, and what I find so beautiful about the medium, is that the internet is a place where it is totally fair to make mistakes. If you make a website and your website sucks, and your website has a whole bunch of pointless JavaScript alerts, and your website doesn't scroll, and your website's just ugly as hell, then what'll happen is maybe not a lot of people will visit it, or maybe a lot of people will visit it. I mean, the Drudge Report is terrible in every conceivable way, but people still go to it. The point is that there's no actual governing body that can tell you that your website is bad. Failure is not failure that relies on rejection. So that's what I'm used to. So the app thing was, I wanted to rewind time. And I wanted to rewind time and just sort of go back to this initial conversation that I was having with this client and talking about how we could have fixed this. Now, this is not a conversation that happened, but what I could have said to them is I could have said, so you say you want a mobile app. When you say you want a mobile app, what is it that you really actually want? Now, this is not a conversation that took place in real life, but they would have probably answered like this. They would have said, well, okay, so I want something that's got an app-like interface, right? I want it to like kind of look like an app. I want it to be installed on a user machine. Maybe I want it to work offline and be kind of like faster because it's got like cached offline materials. Maybe I want to use your camera and microphone. Maybe I have a reason for that. Maybe I want to use geolocation. Maybe there's a reason for that. But what they always want to say to you, the client always means to say, is that they want push notifications. They don't want a mobile app so much as they want a device that gives you push notifications. And to that extent, I want to introduce to you the PWA. Maybe not introduce to you, but reintroduce to you the PWA. The PWA is, at its heart, actually a spec. It is a spec that is written by 3 companies. Google sort of like took the lead on this and did the most work actually on and finalizing the spec. But Mozilla and the Edge team did get behind it. So that spec was written by those 3 companies, and then once finalized, was finally approved by kind of everybody else. Your Brave, your Opera, your like Vivaldi, which is one I've been using a lot lately. It's nice. Recommend it. Vivaldi's cool. Safari was kind of the last holdout because, you know, it sort of ate a little bit of their lunch, but eventually they did. And so a PWA, no matter what modern browser you're using, will be absorbed by any of these browsers. So what is it? Well, unfortunately, it's potentially a lot of things. I don't have a neat category. So what I can say is that, well, what can be in a PWA? Well, okay, a PWA, it can be installable. It can be something that's going to work entirely offline. It can be something that has an offline-online async, so that you can work on the thing offline and then do a like package load when you're online. It can do notifications. It can do managed caching. You can cache only specific things. You can cache more things. You can cache different things. You can cache stuff that hasn't been visited by the browser yet. It'll run Chromeless if you choose it to, so you don't get the address bar. It'll do native sharing, that thing where you've got a picture like a meme or whatever, and then you just want to go like, I want to share this with Telegram or Twitter or whatever. It can do that interface that you're familiar with from mobile apps. It's got weight control, or you can do weight control. So if, for example, you had an app that needed to be sort of idle longer and you didn't want that screen to dim, you can actually control the dim in a PWA. You got multi-touch, you got your Bluetooth, you've actually got quite a bit more. Some of that we're going to get into. So that's fascinating. Okay, so what is it that you need? Coffee. Number 1 is coffee. It's like 10:30 for me, so I still need more of that coffee. Hey, what do you need? You need 3 things. You're going to need an HTTPS connection that is non-negotiable. You're definitely going to need that start, and then you're going to need 2 different files. It's going to be manifest.json file and a service-worker.js file. We'll get to all 3 of those things, but I want to start you off with the HTTPS certificate. Where do I get one? And I don't want to spend money for it. Lots of options. One of the things that I use pretty frequently is GitHub Pages. I think GitHub Pages is cool. If GitHub is part of your process, and it's definitely part of mine, just being able to like push to main and then have main serve the actual site. Yeah. Also, I don't pay for it. Yeah. When I have sites on GitHub Pages that are very popular, I don't worry about getting DDoSed. Microsoft worries about getting DDoSed. That seems difficult for them. Another thing that is great is Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is a nonprofit organization that was kind of in charge of the newest HTTPS push. And they will give you certificates for free. You're going to have to build a sort of like automated job that's going to renew that certificate every 3 to 6 months, but they will totally give it to you for free. Also, if you do Cloudflare, you go, I'm going to point my domain at Cloudflare, then I'm going to point Cloudflare at my servers. From doing that hop, Cloudflare is just going to add in HTTPS as part of the process, which is, why is my phone ringing? No. So that, oh my God. Microsoft Teams haunting me during a conference talk. And finally, you get the cPanel-based hosting platforms. There's a whole bunch of them, but any sort of like Apache server that you need to spin up, is a lot of those are going to have HTTPS. I use Green Geeks and InMotion. I recommend those, but you got a bunch of different options. And really, if you're making a website, you kind of need HTTPS anyway. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a cert, you're going to turn it on, and then you're going to hang up on that call. And then you're going to need to build a manifest.json file. So JSON file is located in the root of your project. It's going to name some of your values. You got a name and description. You got your color scheme, languages. If it's just English, it can be just English, but you can define like multiple languages that your PWA can be absorbed in. Orientation, you can set in your manifest.json file. I want my app to only work like this, or I want my app to only work like this, or it can be both. You can just define that right there. URL scope, if you want part of your app to be a PWA and part of it not. I don't know why, but you could do that. There's a bunch of icons. Then finally, you're going to have a service-worker.js file. That's a single JavaScript file. It can be called anything. I usually call it service-worker.js, but you can call it whatever you like. And you can set up functions for installation, casting, permissions, and features. This is the thing that's going to be your routing engine. This is the thing that's going to do most of the work. Most of the sort of PWA work is all going to be located inside of this file. So having done all of that, you're going to reference those in your index.html file. Here's the manifest. Here's the service worker. And then at that point, you've actually changed how your website is consumed. Before, your website was consumed like any normal website. You've got the idea of your user, and your user is going to type in www.whatever. And then what the browser is going to do is it's going to go, okay, I'm going to look through the cache and see if I can find any kind of cache files that I can use to speed up this process. Pull out all these cache files, and then having done that, I'm going to make a request to the website and go, what do you got for me? I need the following 45 files. That is how traditional websites work. That's how most websites work. When you've got a PWA, I'm getting so many calls. When you've got a PWA, what's going to happen is your user is actually going to first touch the service worker. That service worker is going to look for two things. So the service worker says, I'm going to take all of this traffic and I'm going to instruct you what to do. So as far as your caching rules, I'm going to tell you what your caching rules are. As far as which files to request, I'm going to tell you which files to request. And that service worker is going to control a whole bunch of stuff that the browser used to control. Service worker also will get its own life cycle. So having said all that, now let's get to some real world examples. I've got two different apps I want to show you, and they're both incredibly valuable, and neither of them are stupid in any way. Neither of these apps that I'm showing you that I've built are stupid. So having said that, here's an app called party.party. It is a button that helps you party. That is the goal of this website. And what you do is you go to the website and you get a button, and the button says party. And then when you push the button, and maybe the audio works, party, it goes party. And it'll just keep doing that. But here's the crucial part: is that the more that you hit party, party,
party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, party, what's that you say? Party, party, let me hear you holler, party, let me hear you holler, party, party.
So that's party. It's pretty simple. But one of the things that happened at one point, a friend of mine went camping. And she went camping in a place that was fairly rural, didn't have a whole bunch of cell signal. And a friend of mine said to me, okay, so I was out here and I didn't have internet and I wanted to party, but I couldn't party because I didn't have internet. And I shouldn't need internet to party. I should just need the ability and the desire to party in order to party. And so she said, well, I need to be able to party efficiently when I don't have internet. And I said, that is an excellent point. Let's fix that problem immediately. So I went into the service worker. And what I wanted to say in the service worker was, hey, I have these couple of files and they are mission critical. These are the files that matter the most to me about my party. And there's an index, there's a CSS file, a couple of JS files, and then there's both the party MP3 and the Venga Boys MP3. I want to define all these files. I want you to install all of these locally. And then when there's a fetch request, what you're going to do is you're going to check if you're offline or not. And if you are offline, just go ahead and pull the cache versions. If you are online, just do the normal thing. But if you're offline, I want you to take those cache versions. And those cache versions will not die. A browser has a cache heap that is going to sort of like be based on the rules that the browser sets. When you have a PWA, you get to control the life cycle of your actual files. So having done that, then I did my manifest. I got my name and my description and my short name. They're all very, very descriptive, obviously. The display of standalone, we'll get to in just a sec. Then I've got some colors, and then I've got way too many icons. This is not even the full amount of icons. There's more. Having done that, I just infer both of those in the index.html file. I want you to install this thing. And then I've got this. Now, if during this point of the talk you actually went to party on your phone, you would have seen this banner at the bottom. I did not put that there. The browser put that there. And why the browser put that there is it said, well, I went to this website, and it seems to be a PWA, so would you like to install it? And if I go ahead and say, yes, go ahead and please just install this app for me, then it will. And it'll put that on my phone, and it'll look like any of the other apps. This is a screenshot of my phone that depresses me every time I look at it, because I'm looking at all those things that are travel. Oh man, you got your Lyft, you got your Uber, you got your Airbnb, Eventbrite. I used to use Eventbrite so frequently. Also, airline apps. That's a memory that hurts. But in addition to all of those things, I've actually got a party app icon. Looks like any other app, and it will launch like any other app. You're going to get a very quick splash screen, and then you're going to go right in there. Now, you'll notice that this is Chromeless. It doesn't have the browser. It doesn't have any of that browser Chrome stuff, because I said that I didn't want it. And so it respected that. The other thing that it's going to do is actually going to run as its own thread. So on my phone, my primary is Brave, and you can see that all of the Brave stuff is happening in the Brave thread. Party is in its own thread. So these things are separated from each other. They are controlled by their own individual processes, which I think is neat. Now, testing is a very important part of all of this, as it is an important part of sort of, development in general. And there's the one specific way that I recommend doing this is kind of the same thing that I do for a lot of accessibility, is Lighthouse. Lighthouse is available on webdev.measure, but really broadly, you're probably going to just use the version of it that's in Chrome. So I can open up any website that I like into the Lighthouse. If you've never seen this before, if you go F12, you've got maybe the stuff that you're looking at first. You got your console, you got your elements. Maybe you go through the network trace or whatever. In the Lighthouse tab, you've got tests that you can do about different things that your website's doing. And one of them is the PWA feature. So what I can say is, I want you to test this as a PWA, and I'm going to either tell you that I want it to be a desktop or mobile. If it's mobile, it'll kind of pretend to be a phone. And then run the tests. And if you do this on something that you haven't tried before, if you do this on something you haven't tested before, you're not going to see this. You're going to see something that's a lot different from this. You're going to see a lot more red lights. And that's okay. That's where you want to start from. You want to say, well, I want to get there. And the thing that I've always found really helpful about Lighthouse is that it'll tell you just the specific points that you fucked up, right? It'll say, well, this doesn't work because of this reason, and it'll give you the actual reason and methodologies for fixing it. I think that's really helpful. So we've basically got maybe a couple of green lights, some red lights, and we're just going to turn those red lights green. It's a process. We just want to get all those red lights to be green. It is TDD. It is not TDD, but it's D anyway. So we're going to do our strategy for feature rollout here. Number one, I would totally recommend just testing this thing in Lighthouse. Get an idea in your head, start looking and copy, pasting code, and then just test it. Test it again, be surprised when some things don't work out. Copy different pieces of code, and test it again. Get that thing working on your machines. Obviously get all of those lights, but also try to get it to work the way you want it to. Try to get it to install. Try to get it to, use Geo. Try to get it to use your weight control. Get it working on your machines. At that point, you want to get that to your friends and coworkers' machines. Hey, pretty sure this works, but just do me a favor. You've got an old iPhone, and you've got one of those weird Androids with the keyboard attached, which I think is cool, and I still want them to make phones like that. But would you please try this thing and just make sure that it works for you? At that point, that's when you want to try it out for strangers. Because we're doing this service worker thing where we're rewriting a lot of how our website is consumed, we just want to make sure that strangers actually can get this thing right. We don't just sort of botch it before they get there. I want to show you another example, and that example is damn.dog, another really super valuable and beneficial and monetizable website. It's I'm waiting for, I think Twilio should buy this, or maybe Atlassian. They probably use it. Anyway, so this is based on my love of the website WikiHow. I love WikiHow for a million reasons, but one of them is that their drawings are insane. And so Damndog is just going to provide you with an image that's actually taken from WikiHow, and then it's just going to have you guess the title of what WikiHow this article this is from. So I'm looking here at this, and I got how to be persuasive, survive in a hotel, how to be persuasive, how to make your girlfriend want to have sex with you, or how to deal with your parents' divorce. I'm going to go in with survive in a hotel. Oh, that was your parents' divorce. Okay. I got 2 people watching bowling, and how to show your husband you love him, how to become a good liar, how to catch a cheating girlfriend, how to be mean and intimidating when necessary. Love him? Yes. All right. My score on this particular round is pretty bad, but this will go through. There's a lot of rounds to this game because I've been sort of slowly working on it over the course of years. But that said, the sort of PWA desires that I have for this app are a lot different. This is a more complicated website than party.party, and so it's got different needs. So, for example, I'm going to do my service worker, and in this case, what I'm going to say is I'm going to define my cache name to make sure that I have this specific service worker versioned. Then I'm going to say, okay, so if you're offline, here's just the files that exist when you're offline. Okay, so it's going to install all of these offline files. And then when you fetch, once again, just like Party, I want you to do a check and say, well, okay, is this person offline or online? And if they're offline, rather than giving them the site, because I can't install that many images, I just want you to flip the toggle and give them an offline version of the website. Having done all that, I'm going to see this. So this is desktop Chrome at this point. And desktop Chrome is going to say, you want to install this thing? And I'm going to say, yeah, okay. And then it's going to give me this. And this is Chrome working in a desktop environment. Once again, it's got its own thread. It's got a less trim on the actual browser. And it'll be like an icon that's actually on your desktop. Neat. And for some reason, if you end up in a tunnel, it's going to do that. Not the awesomest, but the thing that is more awesome than that is that that's actually exists now in the Windows Store. The reason is that the Windows has a store, and they went, oh, this isn't going super well. How do we get more things in our store? And so you were just able to give them PWAs, by which I don't actually mean a bundled PWA. You just gave them the place to find the PWA, and Windows would bundle that thing up for you. So I did that. I gave it to Windows, and I said, here's Damndog. I did give some screenshots, to go with it. And there's 2 cool things about this. Number one is that there's no, like I said, no package to this. So this version that's installed from the Windows Store is just going to update anytime I update the actual website. That's cool. The other thing that's cool about this is that Windows tells me it's available on the HoloLens. Now, I don't own a I've never touched a HoloLens. But the moment I get a HoloLens in my hand, I am totally going to try Damndog on it and try to do the select. I don't know how it works, but I'm excited one day to find out. That's fancy, but we can get actually fancier than that. So I've got the reason why I couldn't actually, put all these images into cache or into local storage is there's just too many, right? I've got 358 different images. That would be completely irresponsible as a developer to jam onto your machine. But that number also grows. And so that gives me the opportunity to look at the notification API. So I'm going to go into my service worker, having done all the stuff that we described previously. And I'm going to go, okay, well, I want you to actually look for permission to send a notification. And then I want you to say, hey, there's new rounds updated. 7 new rounds have been updated. And then I can do some icon. I can do the vibration thing. So I can do that thing where it goes like, or I can do I don't know why I would do that, but I can. I can tag this thing and I can just send out permissions. And they notifications. They look like this. This is an actual screenshot from my computer. Damndog has been updated. You can do this on any website that is a PWA. I'm going to take a very quick aside here to say what not to do, and what not to do is exactly this. I'm going to go to producthunt.com. Maybe it's a website you've gone to before. and I'm going to hit enter. And the first thing it's going to do is go, hey, I want to show you notifications. You haven't done anything, Product Hunt. Do not ask me for notifications when you haven't verified why you want. I'm blocking that for sure. The request for notifications is a JavaScript command, which means it can happen at any point in the process. It's not something that needs to happen on page load. It can be whenever. So if you have an app that needs to do notifications, have that permission request be when it's valuable, when it actually matters to the client. So how do I push to users not currently on the website? Like the same way you do any of the other kind of push notification. You get your Firebase, Twilio, you got your OneSignal. I'm assuming there's got to be like hundreds of companies at this point that do that. Use one of those because it's going to be exactly the same process. You've got kind of like one unique ID, and then you're going to push to 10,000 unique IDs, kind of the same exact thing. So where do you go from here? Well, from here, you get cooking. This is a process that you're going to just kind of play with. And one of the ways that you can play with it, first of all, is something that Microsoft built called PWA Builder. So I'm going to give, so this is something I tried out when I was rehearsing this morning. You go to NDC London, you can see that NDC London isn't a PWA, and so it's going to like fail some of these checks. And then PWA Builder will actually give you, for example, well, here's what I think your actual manifest should look like. So maybe your manifest could look like this. And maybe you want to make a service worker. Well, what kind of service worker do you want? Because if you want to do a service worker, here's some sort of stuff that you can copy and paste into here. I like PWA Builder a lot as a first step because it gives you a lot of boilerplate code. It's probably not the code that you're going to still have like a year from now, but it is the code that's going to get it working as fast as possible. So strongly recommend PWA Builder sort of as a starting point. This is the last time I'm going to suggest this site, just because of the state of Mozilla Docs in the process. The service-worker.js, I mean, I loved it just because of the domain. But this will give you recipes. And so you've got like different things that you want to do. And then it's going to give you sort of an example of what that looks like and different recipes of how to do it. This stuff is never going to be newer than this because of, again, Mozilla's current infrastructure. But the stuff that works is still valuable. But their loss is Google's gain. And web.dev is a site that Google has that's pretty big. It's a little bit more sort of like blog focused and kind of like giving you sort of like overviews and reading materials and stuff like that. But I think it does a good job of that. It looks nice and it kind of gives you a little bit of insight into, what do you want to say, strategy, I suppose. But one of the ones that was just a dude that I was really impressed with is called What PWA Can Do Today. And in this case, you actually get a list of different things that PWAs can do. You can do your media capture, geolocation, notifications, contact picker, web share, blah, 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 blah. This site itself is a PWA and just demonstrates each of those PWA factors. So you can install that onto your computer. You can test each and every one of these components, and then you can see the sort of like minimalist enough code that runs each one of those components. Super duper, I mean, really an impressively done site. Good job, Danny. And then this site, I just checked this morning, and yeah, so PWA Fire, I don't know, maybe they've got a 403 error. There's a domain problem. We're just going to move on from that one because there's also Service Workies. Service Workies is a game by Dave Geddes, and it is really impressive because it is a proper video game. I mean, a proper video game. Like there's a story, there's a whole bunch of art, there's a lot of game time, and it looks beautiful. And also, while looking beautiful, it does a really good job of sort of explaining confusing materials like, cache invalidation. I really do like it. Now, that said, it's not free. So I think if you've got a situation where you're excited about service workers and you're excited about PWAs and the company gives you a little bit of a budget, maybe ask them to buy this game for you. I think it's like something like $100 because it did teach me a fair amount about this thing. Finally, I just want to say, when you're thinking of progressive web apps, I've lost the ability to talk at this point. When you're thinking of progressive web apps, actually think about that first word, because the progressive point is the important thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that a PWA can be, but the only thing that a PWA should be is what makes sense. You can build on these things iteratively. You can start off with just the first piece of work that makes this thing a PWA. you know, a sort of a minimum viable product and just kind of build from there. You can stage this thing out and only build those important things. You can work slowly and just try to climb and understand a little bit more of what's happening in your environment so that you can you can escape the walled garden. Because the internet is a fantastic place and nobody should be putting themselves in prison on purpose. We're developers. The thing about being developers is that we are given an income that's over the median. We're given more sort of responsibilities and more freedoms than is the medium. And that means that we have the ability to make things better for other people. We have that ability. Anytime you're writing code that other people can touch, you can make somebody's life better. It's your responsibility and your pleasure. Thank you so much. That's